Welcome to Week 1 for Personal and Organizational Ethics at Ashford University. This is Christine Ouzts, your instructor. The purpose for this presentation is to introduce you to a number of ethical theories that you'll be learning and applying throughout the course. Ethical relativism is the first theory that we're going to study that deems morality to be relative to the norms of your culture. The decision as to whether an action is right or wrong depends on the moral norms of the society in which it is practiced. This causes a lot of confusion when someone is faced with an ethical issue. It allows people to adapt and respect autonomy. An action can be morally right in one society but be morally wrong in another. For an ethical relativist, there is no universal moral standards that can be applied consistently. Moral practices are judged against the moral standards of that society. Based on ethical relativism, there is no common framework for resolving moral disputes. One standard cannot be applied because there is no absolutes. Most ethicists reject the theory of ethical relativism. Some claim that while the moral practices of society may differ, there is not a major difference between fundamental moral principles. There is a principle similar to the golden rule in almost every society. Ethical egoism is based on two basic rules. The first is to look out for yourself, and the second says there is no number two. Ethical issues for an egoist are based on selfish motives. Are we truly ever unselfish, or are we motivated by what ultimately provides benefit back to us? While this is seen as selfish, there are times when we need to make decisions to care for ourselves, even at the cost to others. When we discuss altruism, we're looking at someone who is motivated to increase the welfare of another without conscious regard for their own interest. Supporters of this theory claim that we do this to maximize the rewards of relationships, to gain self-worth, and for social approval. If we are choosing an action for any of these reasons, are we doing it without regard for our own self-interest? Thus, the critics claim that true altruism is not really possible. The principle of beneficence simply says to do what is good. It is related to altruism and to utilitarianism that we will discuss in a few minutes. It says that we should create more good than evil in the world. It is based on the belief that people benefit from the good of others, and we benefit more from good than from evil. Businesses that engage in community service are practicing beneficence. A weakness of this theory is that it assumes that my definition of good is the same as your definition of good. The virtue ethic theory is based on a person being judged by his character. A person's morals and reputation are considered when unusual behavior occurs. A person who does not meet an important deadline will be given some flexibility if they normally meet deadlines. However, someone who is consistently late will not be given flexibility. A drawback to this theory is that changes in moral character are not considered. Another is that it assumes the person is known well enough to have developed a reputation upon which they can be evaluated. Based on deontology, duty assumes that people should honor their obligation. They have a duty to serve. We must keep our promises and honor the law. Because decisions are based on the duties a person must honor, decisions will be consistent, thereby following the principle of justice. One weakness in this theory is that there is no logical basis for defining duty. You may have decided that you have a duty to be to a meeting on time, but why is that your duty? A second weakness is that the one duty may conflict with another. If you are late for a meeting, how fast should you drive? If you speed, you are breaking the law. If you are late, you are not honoring your duty. The last weakness is that deontology is not concerned for the welfare of others. it is lacking in the principle of beneficence. Choices that are based on utilitarian theory use analysis. The choice that yields the greatest benefit to the most people is ethically correct. It makes the assumption that outcomes or consequences can be predicted. When comparing similar situations, predictions may be possible, but not in new situations. In act utilitarianism, the decision is made regardless of personal feelings or the law. In rule utilitarianism, one considers the law and is concerned with fairness. The first weakness is that it is based on the ability to predict outcomes, which is never possible. Another weakness is concerned with consequences that are not equal. Profit is important, but who is to say that it is more important than happiness or one's life? The ethical theory of rights says a society determines what is most important and protected. They are protected because a large majority or ruling population endorses them. I have the right to vote, but citizens in other countries are not always given that right. Individuals also have rights. I can give a friend the right to use my lawnmower on Saturday. The weaknesses are that the biggest obstacle to this theory is understanding the attributes or traits of a right. Another is that society must clearly identify the rights it wants to uphold and give to its citizens. And lastly, society must have clearly stated goals and decide their ethical priorities. As a result of these weaknesses, for rights theory to be applied, it must be used with another ethical theory. The principle of justice states that decisions should be fair to everyone. It also follows that decisions are consistent unless circumstances merit and justify a different decision. Decisions are just if they are based on logic that supports the decision. Police and emergency vehicles are expected to follow speed limits unless there is an event that justifies their need to travel faster. Each of the ethical concepts presented here have been reviewed very quickly. It takes time to understand each of these perspectives. Feel free to review the presentation again if it helps. For those of you seeking to understand more, here are the references for today's presentation. Have a great week and enjoy your study of ethics.